Chapter 5. I did not speak to Augustus again for about a week. I had called him on the night of the broken trophies, so per tradition it was his turn to call, but he didn't. Now it wasn't as if I held my phone in my sweaty hand all day, staring at it while wearing my special yellow dress, patiently waiting for my gentleman caller to live up to his sobriquet. I went about my life. I met Caitlin and her cute but frankly not Augustinian boyfriend for coffee one afternoon. I ingested my recommended daily allowance of Phalanx 4. I attended classes 3 mornings that week at MCC, and every night I sat down to dinner with my mom and dad. Sunday night we had pizza with green peppers and broccoli. We were seated around on our little circular table in the kitchen where my phone started singing, but I wasn't allowed to check it because we have a strict no phones during dinner rule. So I ate a little while mom and dad talked about this earthquake that had just happened in Papua New Guinea. They met in the Peace Corps in Papua New Guinea, and so whenever anything happened there, even something terrible, it was like all of a sudden they were not large sedentary creatures, but the young and idealistic and self-sufficient and rugged people they had once been, and their rapture was such that they didn't even glance over at me as I ate faster than I had ever eaten, transmitting items from my plate into my mouth with a speed and ferocity that left me quite out of breath, which of course made me worry that my lungs were again swimming in a rising pool of fluid. I banished the thought as best I could. I had a PET scan scheduled in a couple weeks. If something was wrong, I had found out soon enough. Nothing to be gained by worrying between now and then. Um, and yet still I worried. I liked being a person. I wanted to keep at it. I worry is yet another side effect of dying. And yes, still I worried. I liked being a person. I wanted to keep at it. Worry is yet another side effect of dying. Finally, I finished and said, "Can I be excused?" And they hardly even paused from their conversation about the strengths and weaknesses of Guinean infrastructure. I grabbed my phone from my purse on the kitchen counter and checked my recent calls. Augustus Waters. I went out of the back door into the twilight. I could see the swing set, and I thought about walking out there and swinging while I talked to him, but it seemed pretty far away given that eating tired me. Instead, I lay down in the grass on the push patio's edge, looked up at Orion, the only constellation I could recognize, and called him. Hazel Grace, he said. Hi, I said. How are you? Grand, he said. I have been wanting to call you on a nearly minutely basis, but I've been waiting until I could form a coherent thought in re and imperial affliction. He said in re. He really did, that boy. In re. And I said, I think it's like reading it. I just kept feeling like I asked, teasing him, like it was a gift. He said askingly, like you had given me something important. Oh, I said quietly. That's cheesy. He said, sorry. No, I said, no, don't apologize. But it doesn't end. Yeah, I said, torture. I totally get it. Like, I get that she died or whatever. Right, as I assume so, I said. And okay, fair enough, but there is this unwritten contract between author and reader, and I think not ending your book kind of violates that contract. I don't know, I said. I'm feeling defensive of Peter Van Houten. That's part of what I like about the book in some ways. It portrays death truthfully. You die in the middle of your life, in the middle of a sentence. But I do, God, I do really want to know what happens to everyone else. That's what I asked him in my letters. But he never answers. Right, you said he is a recluse, correct. Impossible to track down. Right, you said he is a recluse, correct? Impossible to track down, correct? Utterly unreachable, Augustus said. Unfortunately so, I said. Dear Mr. Waters, he answered, I'm writing to thank you for your electronic correspondence received via Miss Baljan 3rd, the 6th of April, from the United States of America, insofar as geography can be said to exist in our triumphantly digitized contemporaneity. Augustus, what the hell? He has an assistant, Augustus said. Lightweight Violent third. I found her. I emailed her. She gave him the email. He responded via her email account. Okay, okay, keep reading. My response is being written with ink and paper in the glorious tradition of our ancestors and then transcribed by Miss Valjean III into a series of 1s and 0s to travel through the insipid wave which has lately ensnared our species. So I apologize for any errors of omissions that may result. Giving the entertainment bachanalia at the disposal of young men and women of your generation, I am grateful to anyone, anywhere who sets aside the hours necessary to read my little book. But I am particularly indebted to you, sir, both for your kind words about an imperial affliction and for taking the time to tell me that the book, and here I quote you directly, meant a great deal to you. This comment, however, leads me to wonder, what do you mean by meant? Given the final futility of our struggle, is a fleeting jolt of meaning that art gives us valuable, or is the only value in passing the time as comfortably as possible? What should our stories seek to emulate? Augustus, a ringing alarm, a call to arms, a morphine drip. Of course, like all interrogation of the universe, this line of inquiry inevitably reduces us to asking what it means to be human and whether, to borrow a phrase from the angst encumbered 16-year-olds you no doubt revile. There is a point to it all. I fear there is not, my friend, and that you would receive scant encouragement from further encounters with my writing. But to answer your question, no, I have not written anything else, nor will I. I do not feel that continuing to share my thoughts with readers would benefit either them or me. Thank you again for your generous email. Your most sincerely, Peter Van Houten via Ludwig Valgen III. Wow, I say, are you making this up? Hazel Grace, could I, with my meager intellectual capacities, make up a letter from Peter Van Houten featuring phrases like our triumphantly digitized contemporaneity? You could not, I allowed. Can I have the email address? Of course, Augustus said, like it was not the best gift ever. I spent the next 2 hours writing an email to Peter Van Houten. It seemed to get worse each time I rewrote, but I couldn't stop myself. Dear Mr. Peter Van Houten, Siva Darvayo, Lightweight, Valjean Third. My name is Hazel Grace Lancaster. My friend Augustus Waters, who read an Imperial Affliction at my recommendation, I just received an email from you at this address. I hope you will not mind that Augustus shared that email with me. Mr. Van Houten, I understand from your email to Augustus that you are not planning to publish any more books. In a way, I'm disappointed, but I'm also relieved. I never have to worry whether your next book will live up to the magnificent perfection of the original. As a 3-year survivor of stage 4 cancer, I can tell you that you got everything right in an Imperial Affliction, or at least you got me right. Your book has a way of telling me what I'm feeling before I even feel it, and I have reread it dozens of times. I wonder though if you would mind answering a couple questions I have about what happens after the end of the novel. I understand the book ends because Anna dies or becomes too ill to continue writing it, but I would really like to know what happens to Anna's mom. Whether she married the Dutch tulip man, whether she ever has another child, and whether she stays at 917 W Temple, etc. Also, is the Dutch tulip man a fraud or does he really love them? What happens to Anna's friends, particularly Clary and Jake? Do they stay together? And lastly, I realize that this is the kind of deep and thoughtful question you always hope your readers would ask. What becomes of Sisyphus the hamster? These questions have haunted me for years, and I don't know how long I have left to get answers to them. I know these are not important literary questions, and that your book is full of important literary questions, but I would just really like to know. And of course, if you ever do decide to write anything else, even if you don't want to publish it, I had loved to read it. Frankly, I had read your grocery lists. Yours with great admiration, Hazel Grace Lancaster is 16. After I sent it, I called Augustus back and we stayed up late talking about an imperial affliction, and I read him the Emily Dickinson poem that Van Houten had used for the title. And he said I had a good voice for reading and didn't pause too long for the line breaks. And then he told me that the sixth Price of Dawn book, The Blood Proofs, begins with a quote from a poem. It took him a minute to find the book, but finally he read the quote to me. Say your life broke down. The last good case you had was years ago. Not bad, I said. Bit pretentious. I believe Max Mayhem would refer to that as sissy shit. Yes, with his teeth gritted, no doubt. God, Mayhem grits his teeth a lot in these books. He is definitely going to get TMJ if he survives all this combat. And then after that, second guy says, when was the last good kiss you had? I thought about it. My kissing all pre-diagnosis. I had been uncomfortable and slobbery, and on some level, it was always felt like kids playing at being grown. But of course, it had been a while, years ago. I said finally, you? I had a few good kisses with my ex-girlfriend, Caroline Mathers. Years ago, the last one was just less than a year ago. What happened during the kiss? No, with you and Caroline. Oh, he said, and then after a second, Caroline is no longer suffering from personhood. Oh, I said, yeah, he said, I'm sorry. I said, I had known plenty of dead people, of course, but I had never dated one. I couldn't even imagine it, really. Not your fault, Hajal Grace. We are all just side effects, right? Barnacles on the container ship of consciousness. I say, quoting AIA. Okay, he said. Okay. Barnacles on the container ship of consciousness. I said, quoting AIA. Okay, he said, I gotta go to sleep. It's almost one. Okay, I said, okay, he said. I giggled and said, okay, and then the line was quiet but not dead. I almost felt like he was there in my room with me, but in a way it was better. Like I was not in my room and he was not in his, but instead we were together in some invisible and tenuous third space that could only be visited on the phone. Okay, he said after forever. Maybe okay will be our always. Okay, I said. It was Augustus who finally hung up. Peter Van Houten replied to Augustus' email for 4 hours after he sent it, but 2 days later, Van Houten still hadn't replied to me. Augustus assured me it was because my email was better and required a more thoughtful response. That Van Houten was busy writing answers to my questions and that brilliant prose took time. But still, I worried. On Wednesday, during American Poetry for Dummies 101, I got a text from Augustus. Isaac out of surgery. It went well. He's officially NEC. NEC meant no evidence of cancer. A second text came a few seconds later. I mean, he is blind, so that's um, unfortunate. That afternoon, mom consented to loan me the car so I could drive down to Memorial to check in on Isaac. I found my way to his room on the fifth floor, knocking even though the door was open, and a woman's voice said, come in. It was a nurse who was doing something to the bandages on Isaac's eyes. Hey, Isaac, I said. And he said, Mom? Oh, no, sorry. No, it's Hazel. Support group Hazel. Night of the Broken Trophies Hazel. Oh, he said, yeah, people keep saying my other senses will improve to compensate, but clearly not yet. Hi, support group Hazel, come over here so I can examine your face with my hands and see deeper into your soul than a sighted person ever could. He's kidding. The nurse said, yes, I said, I realized. I took a few steps toward the bed. I pulled a chair up and sat down, took his hand. Hey, I said, hey, he said back, then nothing for a while. How you feeling? I asked. Okay, he said, I don't know. You don't know what? I asked. I looked at his hand because I didn't want to look at his face blindfolded by bandages. Isaac bit his nails, and I could see some blood on the corners of a couple of his cuticles. She hasn't even visited, he said. I mean, we were together 14 months. 14 months is a long time. God, that hurts. Isaac let go of my hand to fumble for his pain pump, which you hit to give yourself a wave of narcotics. The nurse, having finished the bandage change, stepped back. It has only been a day, Isaac, she said, vaguely condescending. You have gotta give yourself time to heal, and 14 months isn't that long. Not in the scheme of things. You are just getting started, buddy. You will see. The nurse left. Is she gone? I nodded, then realized he couldn't see me nod. Yeah, I said. I'll see. Really? Did she seriously say that? Qualities of a good nurse. Go. I said. Well, number one, doesn't pan on your disability, Isaac said. Number two, gets blood on the first try, I said. Seriously, that is huge. I mean, is this my freaking armor or dartboard? Number three, no condescending voice. How are you doing, sweetie? I asked, going. I'm going to stick you with a needle now. There might be a little ouchie. Is my widow Faffy Wamp sticky wicky? He answered. And then after a second, most of them are good. Actually, I just want the hell out of this place. This place, as in the hospital, that too, he said. His mouth tightened. I could see the pain. Honestly, I think a hell of a lot more about Monica than my eye. Is that crazy? That's crazy. It's a little crazy, I allowed. But I believe in true love. I don't believe that everybody gets to keep their eyes or not get sick or whatever, but everybody should have true love, and it should last at least as long as your life does. Yeah, I said. I just wish the whole thing hadn't happened sometimes. The whole cancer thing. His speech was slowing down, the medicine working. I'm sorry, I said. Gus was here earlier. He was here when I woke up, took off school. His head turned to the side a little. It's better, he said quietly. The pain, I asked. He nodded a little. Good, I said. And then, like the bitch I am, you were saying something about Gus, but he was gone. I went downstairs to the tiny windowless gift shop and asked the decrepit volunteer sitting on a stool behind a cash register what kind of flowers smell the strongest. They also smell the same. They get sprayed with super scent. She said, really? Yeah, they just squared them with it. I opened the cooler to her left and sniffed at a dozen roses, and then leaned over some carnations. Same smell and lots of it. The carnations were cheaper, so I grabbed a dozen yellow ones. They cost $14. I went back into the room. His mom was there holding his hand. She was young and really pretty. Are you a friend? She asked, which struck me as one of those unintentionally broad and unanswerable questions. Yeah, I say. I'm from support group. These are for him. She took them and placed them in her lap. Do you know Monica? She asked. I shook my head. No. Well, he's sleeping, she said. Yeah, I talked to him a little before when they were doing the bandages or whatever. I hated leaving him for that, but I had to pick up Graham at school. She said. He did okay, I told her. She nodded. I should let him sleep. She nodded again. I left. The next morning, I woke up early and checked my email first thing. Lightweight Virgin3 at gmail.com had finally replied, Dear Miss Lancaster, I fear your faith has been misplaced, but then faith usually is. I cannot answer your questions, at least not in writing, because to write out such answers would constitute a sequel to an imperial affliction, which you might publish or otherwise share on the network that has replaced the brains of your generation. There is a telephone, but then you might record the conversation. Not that I don't trust you, of course, but I don't trust you. Alas, dear Hazel, I could never answer such questions except in person, and you are there while I am here. That noted, I must confess that the unexpected receipt of your correspondence via Miss Valjanther has delighted me. What a wondrous thing to know that I made something useful to you. Even if that book seems so distant from me that I feel it was written by a different man altogether, the author of the novel was so thin, so frail, so comparatively optimistic. Should you find yourself in Amsterdam, however, please do pay a visit at your leisure. I'm usually home. I would even allow you a peek at my grocery list. Yours most sincerely, Peter Van Houten, Sibai O. Lightwich, Vilegen Third. Vilegen Third. Well, I'm here. Hmm. What? I shouted aloud. What is this life? Mom ran in. What's wrong? Nothing, I assured her. Still nervous, Mom knelt down to check on Philip to ensure he was condensing oxygen appropriately. I imagined sitting at a sun drenched cafe with Peter Van Houten as he leaned across the table on his elbows, speaking in a soft voice so no one else would hear the truth of what happened to the characters I had spent years thinking about. He had said he couldn't tell me except in person, and then invited me to Amsterdam. I explained this to Mom and then said, I have to go. Hazel, I love you, and I had do anything for you, but we don't. We don't have the money for international lab travel, and the expense of getting equipment over there, love, is just not. Yeah, I said, cutting her off. I realized I'd been silly even to consider it. Don't worry about it, but she looked worried. It's really important to you, yeah? She asked, sitting down, a hand on my calf. It would be pretty amazing, I said, to be the only person who knows what happens besides him. That would be amazing, she said. I'll talk to your father. No, don't, I said. Just seriously, don't spend any money on it, please. I'll think of something. It occurred to me that the reason of my parents had no money was me. I had sapped the family savings with Phalanx for copies, and Mom couldn't work because she had taken on the full time profession of hovering over me. I didn't want to put them even further into debt. I told Mom I wanted to cool Augustus to get her out of the room because I couldn't handle her. I can make my daughter's dreams come true. Uh, because I couldn't handle her. I can make my daughter's dreams come true, sad face. Augustus was a star. I read him the letter in live of saying hello. Wow, he said, I know, right? I said, how am I going to get to Amsterdam? Do you have a wish? He asked, referring to this organization, the Genie Foundation, which is the in the business of granting sick kids one wish. No, I said, I used my wish pre-miracle. What did you do? I said loudly, I was 13. I said, not Disney, he said. I said, nothing. You did not go to Disney World? I said, nothing. I said, Grace, he shouted. You did not use your one dying wish to go to Disney World with your parents? Also, Epcot Center? I mumbled. Oh my god, I was just saying, I can't believe I have a crush on a girl with such glitchy wishes. I crush on a girl with such cute. I was 13. I said again, although of course I was only thinking crush, 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 crush. I was flattered but changed the subject immediately. Shouldn't you be in school or something? I'm playing hooky to hang out with Isaac, but he's sleeping, so I'm in the atrium doing geometry.